my channel, The Fancy Hat Lady Reads. I am wearing one of my fancy booktube hats, and today I am doing a double book review of two historical fantasy novels that were both released early this year. I had e-arcs of both of these from NetGalley, so thank you to the publishers. The first was Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett, which was released on January 10th from Del Rey in the US. And the second is The Magician's Daughter by H.G. Parry, which was released on February 28th from Red Hook. These are both books by established authors that I had never read before, but both of these books really stood out to me based on their book descriptions, and I was very excited for both of them. And I did end up enjoying both of them a lot, but in slightly different ways. So first, Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I took a bit of a gamble on this one based on the title and description alone, having no knowledge of Heather Fawcett's prior YA and middle grade novels. It seemed like it would check all my boxes for a comfort read, but we all know that marketing can deceive and books can underdeliver. So I am delighted to report that this book contained just the right mix of entertaining characters, humor, peril, folklore, and warmth even in the coldest of climes and fey lands to thoroughly charm me. This is an alternate history set in what I would guess to be the early 20th century in a world where fairies of both the common and courtly types are known to exist and are indeed the subject of an entire branch of academic study. Emily Wilde is a brilliant but underappreciated Cambridge scholar working on her magnum opus, an encyclopedia of all known fae species. The novel is told through entries in her journal as she chronicles a final field expedition to a remote town in a fictional Scandinavian nation to document the existence of their heretofore unstudied fae. Emily may be brilliant at understanding fae logic, but she is terrible at understanding human people, and immediately antagonizes most of the townfolk, whose help she desperately needs, both in collecting local lore and in surviving the harsh winter. Emily's narrative voice in her journal entries is just excellent. Comparisons come to mind to Murderbot, Lady Trent, and a no-nonsense T. Kingfisher heroine, all wrapped into one. I adore her. You know who else also adores her? Fellow scholar and charming people-pleaser Wendell Brambleby. Wendell is Emily's best friend by virtue of being her only friend, and when he shows up uninvited, she is certain that he must be there to steal credit for her academic research. Wendell is also a very distinctive character, but because Emily is narrating most of the book, we see him mostly through her opinions of him, which are sometimes sharply perceptive, but often way off the mark where his intentions towards her are concerned. She also harbors suspicions that he isn't human, though she has long kept these to herself. Their interactions are hilarious and kept me laughing throughout the book, even when Emily finds herself in increasing magical peril and the stakes are raised. I was unsure going in how much, if at all, this book would hinge on romance. Having read it, I would say that depends on what your expectations are for a central romance plot. Emily and Wendell's relationship is a major focus of the story, and it does turn romantic by the end, but the romance doesn't actually progress very far in this book. It is meant to be a series. I'd say you can go into this expecting that grumpy sunshine ship dynamic to be front and center. Emily is grumpy, Wendell is sunshine. But don't expect anything to get hot and steamy until the sequels, if at all. Alongside Emily's relationship with Wendell, we get to see her slowly develop a genuine connection with the townspeople she's able to help with her expertise, though she would tell you her primary motive is scientific discovery. The alternate history here is not a major focus, though it seems to allow not only for invented countries, but also for greater gender equity in academia, and also a couple of openly queer characters who don't seem to face any prejudice. For me, Authors taking this sort of casual liberty with history works really well in a fantasy book that's supposed to be a comfort read. And I don't really require further explanations, but I do wonder if subsequent books will explore this world's alternate history a bit further. And I've been thinking about this a little more since I initially wrote this review, and I think it's possible that if Heather Fawcett doesn't intend to examine the deeper logic behind this alternate history, then this series might have been better off sort of posing itself as a fictional fantasy world that strongly resembles a real-world historical time period, but with like the serial numbers filed off, a la Lady Trent or the self-published Stariel series, which I just reviewed on this channel. Most of the in-depth critique I've seen of this book has to do with this question of historical accuracy, and it is so easy to just sidestep a lot of that if you're a fantasy author, if you want to, you know? Regardless, I finished this book eager not only for further installments of Emily's story, but also to explore some of Fawcett's backlist, especially her middle grade novels. The strong narrative voice in this book and its central whimsy were what convinced me that Fawcett could become a new favorite author for me, and I can imagine these strengths leading themselves especially well to middle grade. I gave this 5 stars. This was my first 5-star read of the year. So far, it's still my only 5-star read of the year. And now for the second historical fantasy I am reviewing today, and that is The Magician's Daughter by H.G. Parry. This is my first foray into Parry's writing, though it's her 4th published novel, all of them adult fantasy novels, I believe. It's a standalone historical fantasy set in 1912 that serves as a coming-of-age story for its teenage protagonist, Bridget, known as Biddy. Biddy has grown up on the mythic island of High Brazil off the coast of Ireland, and the legend of this island is real, not a fabrication of the author, though of course you will not find it on any real map. Biddy knows that Rowan, the mage who raised her along with his rabbit familiar Hutchincroft, is not her father. He has never claimed to be. The story that he has told her is that she washed ashore from a shipwreck when she was an infant. She also knows that she's not allowed to leave the island, although Rowan does, voyaging out into the world in the form of a raven late at night, without telling her where he goes or what he does there. Biddy, at the approximate age of 16, is naturally getting tired of all of this secrecy. Soon, though, Rowan's troubles reach a crisis point and he resorts to enlisting Biddy in a scheme to entrap his enemies, granting her the long-awaited chance to see the real world that she has only read about in books. Biddy is not a magician herself, a trait that we understand to be inherent to a lucky few and inaccessible to all others, but she does have a powerful magic spell embedded in her heart. And Rowan is counting on that spell's presence, attracting the mages of England's powerful secret council that governs the use and distribution of magic. You see, although the existence of magic is kept secret from most of society, 70 years prior, the natural magic in the world started to dry up, and nobody knows why. The current leader of the council used the crisis to seize power, and Rowan was driven into hiding for his opposition. What ensues is a book that, though told from the perspective of its teenage protagonist, feels at times like it's actually more about the relationships between Rowan and his erstwhile colleagues, their complicated pasts, and their disagreements about a way forward for the future of magic. Biddy's growing understanding of the world comes hand in hand with a more mature understanding of the man who raised her. The title, The Magician's Daughter, is a little bit of a tease. Biddy's origins are a mystery, as is the powerful magic locked in her heart. But is she truly the daughter of a magician? And in what sense? And if it turns out that she's truly unspecial and unchosen by birth, then does she still have what it takes to change the world? Parry's writing and world building aren't particularly dense, and her storytelling is assured and polished. This will be a relatively accessible book for a casual genre reader. I myself read an awful lot of historical and historical-ish fantasy. Enough that I know my own personal preference for true alternate histories over stories that are set in our timeline where magic is kept secret from the general public. In this case, I have a hard time buying the narrative that life became generally more desolate and hopeless for the citizenry worldwide in the years between 1842 and 1912 due to the disappearance of wild magic from the world, after which it suddenly returned and there was hope again. It is a slight affront to the belief that historical events and trends have real, observable sociological causes. Besides, there's a world war looming on the horizon, and in the absence of an obvious planned sequel, I just don't buy it. I guess what I'm saying is that while books like The Magician's Daughter appeal to me immensely, and I found this one's strengths to outweigh its weaknesses overall, it wasn't really a standout of the genre to me in any way. I'd say read this one if you liked The 10,000 Doors of January. It's a similar breed. I gave The Magician's Daughter 4 stars. I flew through it pretty quickly. I enjoyed my time with this book. I probably won't remember it strongly a year or two from now. Thank you for sticking with me and my occasionally odd opinions about historical fantasy until the end. Let me know if you've read either of these books and if your opinions align with mine or if they don't. Anyhow, I hope you're having a very nice day. That is all. Bye for now.